the Angel of Dice has said, in addition to the console log and loggers, do you find developers do test cases, aka input versus expected results? Right, so testing code, as in creating a functional test, creating an API test, creating a unit test, that is a way of testing expected outcomes. If you don't have something that will say, yes, this is actually a true comparison of what you've expected, then all you're going to do is just assume. You're just going to make an assumption. Yes, the code works because I don't know any different. So yes, I do. From my point of view, I would prefer to write unit tests than to write console logs, to write var dumps and print Rs, to do what I call quick and dirty feedback loops. I say they're dirty. It's just they're not dirty. It's just there is a danger of putting that in production or something daft. And when you're like, for example, on my typical day, I have like 30 different tabs open in Chrome. I've got like or Safari, whatever I'm using. My PHP Storm, I've got several projects going because each project has a Git repository, and the projects that I'm working on at the moment for these clients, they have different repositories, and I could be in so many different files in each of those projects. I mean, I could be in 10, 15, and there could be 3 projects open. So it's going to be a very easy thing for me to forget if I've got any kind of printing statement going through. Now, one thing you can do, especially for the JavaScript, and I also believe with the PHP, is that you can also you can write ways to remove logging from production. So you can use things like your Webpack or whatever takes your fancy in terms of your task runners to remove, minify, uglify your JavaScript and remove all your console logs. You can do a similar thing with PHP as well, but not every project, and I have to take into account that I am a freelancer, so not every project will be set up the same. So don't assume that your environment is exactly the same when you move from one job to the other. And another thing about bugs, with testing bugs, is that so let's say something's in production, and we discover that there is an issue. There's a page that's just falling over. It's coming back with a 500 error. What I would like to do in the ideal world is I would like to take a snapshot of the database at that point in time, or at the very least, a snapshot of the portion of the database that is being used at that time. I would then like to pull down the code. I would like to pull down any assets that are required. I would basically like to set up my local environment in a way that can mimic whatever this user is getting as an error, as a bug. I would then like to refresh the page or do whatever the user does in order to get that issue. I would then write a series of acceptance tests to say that will fail because they get to that page, they do whatever that user has done, and it fails. But you've written that acceptance test, that failing test, knowing that when that bug is fixed, that acceptance test will pass. And then what I would like to do is drill down and discover the root cause of that issue. And if I can wrap a unit test around that, then brilliant. That means that once I've fixed that issue, both the acceptance test and the unit test, whatever tests that I've actually written to replicate that issue, have passed. And that means the next time I run my unit test suite, I am checking against that issue that I fixed previously. And that is how I would use feedback loops as a way of going forward and making the code more stable. And once you get into that sort of that mentality, that headspace of let's replicate these issues locally, let's then fix them, you are then improving as not only as a developer, but you're improving the system. And that is basically the ideal situation. Now, unfortunately, time is never on our side. so it's not a simple case of just let's just pull down the database, let's just bring off all the assets, let's just do all sorts of bits and pieces. Sometimes you have to be very rapid. And so when that happens, I like to do what I've just discussed, but in retrospect. So yes, I fixed the issue and I've pushed it up to production. Great. But let's just do a unit test. Let's just do an acceptance test to ensure that that never happens again. Because what you're doing when you're writing tests is that you're trying to make the system more stable. And if there is an issue, if there is a bug, then you want to make sure that that never appears again. And so what I like doing with my unit tests and my acceptance tests is in PHP, for example, I will assign them a particular group. So maybe it would be, I don't know, bug-165, whatever is in the Jira ticket or whatever ticket that has come my way. That means that in the command line, I use Codeception. So I can use PHP bin and then codecep and then run -G, and then I put in the designated group that I want to run. And that means it'll only run that specific unit test. It's not having to go through the whole suite.